According to international experts, wheat production in Kazakhstan in the 2021-2022 marketing year amounted to 11.8 million tons, which makes it the 14th position in the global ranking. For the local agro-industrial complex, the past season was one of the worst. The drought that lasted from spring to early summer, combined with abnormally high air temperatures, led to catastrophic consequences in the fields. The increase in acreage to an 8-year high was completely offset by a 30% decrease in average yields in the country. Also, the International Grains Council estimates grain production in the 2022-2023 marketing year at almost 18 million tons. The domestic consumption rate is 2.6 million tons. Exports can reach 9 million tons. The country's final reserves may amount to 1.2 million tons. Meanwhile, our country is still one of the world's top 10 wheat producers. How much and what kind of wheat does Kazakhstan grow? Who buys it from us and what we produce from it? Learn the answers in this episode of Our Product. Kazakhstan is known internationally as a producer of grains, primarily wheat. The focus on growing cereals was made back in Soviet times, and most likely it is not due to the efficiency of their cultivation in the country, but due to the need for ensuring food security in the Union. Further developments in regards to growing cereals show that these practices remained unchanged ever since. In 1980s, grain production in Kazakhstan was ensured due to agricultural intensification. 50% of the yield was formed due to the use of mineral fertilizers, 20% due to the use of zone-specific varieties, and 30% due to compliance with certain production methods. Kazakhstan ranks 109th out of 130 countries cultivating wheat in terms of wheat yield. Our country mainly grows strong soft wheat varieties which contain a lot of protein, but has a low yield relative to soft weak varieties. And yet, the work on increasing yields is constantly underway, and scientists are working on creating new varieties. A new variety of spring soft wheat called Taimas was created in our center. In 2022, it was approved for use in the Akmola region. This is a mid-ripening wheat variety which ripens in about 90 to 95 days. The variety's biological features include its resistance to drought, lodging, and brown rust. According to the research conducted at the Institute of Plant Biology and Biotechnology, resistance to brown rust is explained by the presence of LR19 and LR37 genes. The average yield of the new variety is about 16 to 20 quintals per hectare, with potential yields up to 38 quintals. Also, the new variety shows high grain quality characteristics. Thus, the protein content averaged 15.1 to 15.7% over the years of testing. The gluten content is between 32 and 34%. The flour strength is about 300 alveograph units, while the baking score is 4.6 points. The variety is patented. We have received a patent for this variety in January. That is, the rights for the variety are protected in our country. While patents allow protecting the rights against competitors and plagiarists, 100% yield and a generous profit cannot be guaranteed. The weather imposes its own rules every season, and oftentimes it seems to test those working in the fields. Therefore, scientists work on developing new varieties all the time.
Developing new varieties is always needed. Overall, Akmola region offers all kinds of surprises every year, as one year is not like the other. Every year doesn't look like the previous one. Some years the season may be rainy, which complicates harvesting, or a drought may occur when we can already harvest the entire crop in late August, for example. And when it rains, our work is delayed. We made research in our center and suggested that in our zone, which is the Akmola region, we can create wheat varieties specifically for food and forage purposes, and that the mid-ripening wheat varieties are suitable for our region. As for early ripening wheat varieties, well, they are good enough, but they have low yield. Meanwhile, with mid-late wheat varieties, it may turn out that we may not be able to harvest the crop, as it may be rainy in August. Harvesting may also be complicated due to the presence of weeds and underwood. Therefore, growing mid-ripening wheat varieties is the best option. That's why we choose to work with them.
Со среднеспелыми сортами.
Kazakhstan exported 7,090,000 tons of grain in 2021. This is 184,000 tons more than in 2020. However, experts believe that most likely the increase occurred due to the re-export of Russian wheat, as the import of grain to Kazakhstan has almost doubled in a year. The list of top 3 countries that purchase Kazakh wheat has not changed for several years. The first position is occupied by Uzbekistan, as the country purchased almost 3 million tons. Tajikistan, ranking second, bought just over 1 million tons of grain. Lastly, Iran comes third in the list, purchasing 867,000 tons of Kazakhstan's grain. However, Kazakhstan exports not only grain but also flour. Kazakhstan produces more than 3 million tons of it per year. Almost half of that volume is exported to different countries. Afghanistan is the largest buyer of flour produced in Kazakhstan, as it purchases more than half of the export volume, 756,000 tons, followed by Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, as they acquire 445 and 83,000 tons respectively. Other buyers of the flour made in Kazakhstan include Russia, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Ukraine. In fact, Kazakhstan is the only country in the world that sells more wheat flour to the foreign markets than it consumes domestically. Kazakhstan is unparalleled in terms of wheat flour production and export rates per capita. Kazakhstan is also a global leader in volumes of wheat flour exports, as Kazakh flour has been among the world's top 3 wheat best sellers for the past 15 years. Nevertheless, there are quite a number of issues in regards to the export of Kazakh flour to foreign countries, since the buyer countries are interested in developing their own flour milling industry, which means they're not willing to support Kazakh flour producers. For several years, the countries importing our flour have been applying non-tariff restrictions in trade, creating in one way or another favorable conditions for the supply of grain to their countries, not flour. For example, Uzbekistan introduced excise taxes on imported flour. Tajikistan imposed differentiated VAT. Kyrgyzstan zeroed the VAT rate on grain imports. All these measures stimulated the development of milling capacities in those countries and prevented the import of Kazakh flour. As a result, there is a drop in the volume of flour supplies to those countries and an increase in grain supplies. Thus, Tajikistan, which occupied 20% of flour exports from Kazakhstan in recent years, now takes only 2%. The share of flour exports to Uzbekistan has fallen from 67% to 28%. Meanwhile, the export of grain to Tajikistan increased to over 1 million tons per year, and to Uzbekistan to about 1.8 million tons per year. It is quite clear that changing the situation, the abolition of non-tariff restrictions in importing countries, is beyond our flour millers. It is a primary responsibility of government authorities that seem to be slow to take actions. It took 6 years to abolish excise taxes on flour imported to Uzbekistan. During these 6 years, the Uzbek businesses have created a private milling sector, which is now a direct competitor for our millers in terms of both selling Kazakh flour to Uzbekistan and exporting our flour to Afghanistan. The same is true with Tajikistan. Unfortunately, we have not developed prompt tit-for-tat response measures at governmental level. Without the government's active protection of business interests in foreign markets, the development of exports of any kind in modern conditions is almost impossible. Therefore, the struggle for foreign markets is a common task, the solution of which we see only in a close public-private partnership. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, Kazakhstan is ranked 6th in size of agricultural land, 79% of the country's area. However, arable land accounts for only 14% of agricultural land. This means that a significant portion of agricultural land in Kazakhstan is taken by uncultivated land, such as natural pastures, meadows, and steppes. Grain crops are the backbone of crop farming in Kazakhstan. Until 2007, they accounted for about 90% of the acreage. In the years that followed, their share was gradually decreasing and has recently totaled about 80%. Since 2007, oilseeds have been gradually increasing their share in the crop structure. Yet, the area under grain is not reduced, which indicates an increase in the use of arable land. Based on the production and export of wheat over a long period, it can be stated that 10 to 12 million tons of wheat are needed to maintain the country's food security. Kazakhstan can produce this volume using the method of extensive farming, as it is now, without particularly investing resources in improving the quality and efficiency of production. Consequently, Kazakhstan may reduce the acreage used for wheat and switch to growing other more efficient crops, or take a different path by increasing yields, improving quality, while developing an aggressive marketing policy of promoting our products on the global markets. Which of these options is acceptable for Kazakhstan largely depends on the goals being set, either to stop chasing the leadership position in wheat exports and begin to actively engage in other crops, or to try make Kazakh wheat a golden standard, not inferior to similar varieties from Australia and Canada, the countries that have land resources and climatic zones as in Kazakhstan.
На сегодняшний день я считаю ситуация стабильная.
I think that at present the situation is stable. Our gross grain harvest is increasing. The grain quality, as I have already said, is high. And overall, I think we will increase our country's export potential.
Нашей страны.
And yet, the agro-industrial complex of the country faces the task of stepping up the level of processing, while selling not only grain or flour but also products with high added value. And in this case, our country can boast of high-quality pasta that is being produced in Kazakhstan. There are certainly plenty of types of pasta, and we have the potential of producing them not only for the consumers in Kazakhstan, but also for those in other countries. A brief look back at history. Indians and Arabs have been eating pasta since 1200 AD. It is surprising that the words sevika and rishta, the terms which the Hindus and Arabs at the time used to refer to pasta, have the same meaning, a thread. Moreover, Italian spaghetti, derived from the word spago, is translated as thread-like. With the emergence of pasta, people had to invent a new device to be used for eating it, since a wooden awl, a three-pronged fork, was not very convenient, whereas eating pasta using hands could only stain expensive clothes. The way out was found at the court of King Ferdinand II. It was his courtiers who came up with the idea of shortening the awl and adding another forked tine. In this form, the fork has been preserved to this day. There are different types of pasta, extra long, long and short. They are made from rye, buckwheat, soy, rice flour, but most often pasta is made from wheat flour. In the latter case, there is also a well-known distinction. There is pasta made of durum wheat flour, soft varieties, and lastly products made of mixed varieties. Actually, the famous Navy-style pasta dish has its own history. Since the beginning of the 20th century, Navy-style pasta has become a long-standing tradition and a significant symbol of good food in the Navy. This meal was cooked on rare occasions as a reward for hard work, which elevated the dish to a cult status. Considering that at that time this pasta was only served on ships, most sailors remembered the food as a truly Navy dish. Returning to civilian life, the sailors cooked the meal themselves or asked their wives to cook the Navy-style pasta, just like during their service. And later, the dish became popular among more people. The first documented mention of the Navy-style pasta recipe was published in the Soviet cookbook in 1955. Some recipes from that book are still used in catering establishments, mainly in small canteens. A factory technologist from Taras will explain how pasta is made on an industrial scale. The production process includes a number of steps. We have 2 tankers, 300 kilograms each, which we will fill with high-grade flour and soft wheat flour. Then a saline solution is prepared. There are dispensers that are filled up with water until half ready. Then the batch is dropped to the mixing container where a certain temperature is maintained. And afterwards the batch is taken to the pasta rollers. Each roller is different. The dough is rolled out to a desired thickness, and after that the batch goes to the pasta machine. After the pasta machine, the dough is delivered to the steam tunnel, where it retains its shape and undergoes heat treatment. Next, we proceed to slicing. Here, our noodles are delivered to a steam tunnel, where they undergo heat treatment, preserving their shape. The heat treatment is 90 degrees Celsius. After that, the noodles are taken to the slicer, where we control the slicing process using the control cabinet. The noodles are cut in width and length. The slicing goes step by step. As I said previously, the first step is to mix the dough. There are 2 tankers with the capacity of 300 kilograms each. Afterwards, the dough goes into the mixing container where the batch maintains a certain temperature. Then the dough goes through the pasta rollers, followed by heat treatment. After that, the noodles are cut into desired thickness and size. Then the pasta is taken to the dryer, and this whole process takes 100 meters of area. At the very end, we get the finished product.
Занимает 100 метров. И после, в самом конце, мы получаем готовую продукцию.
According to the data by the Kazakh Ministry of Agriculture, there are 40 enterprises engaged in pasta production. In 2022, production grew by almost 6%. According to the ministry, almost 160,000 tons of pasta were produced in 2021. Meanwhile, officials say that the average annual pasta consumption in Kazakhstan totals about 130,000 tons. As for exports, Russia, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan are the major consumers of Kazakh pasta. The scale of pasta market in the world is massive. The total export of pasta is worth more than $8.5 billion. Meanwhile, the share of Kazakh products in the market is less than 0.2%. Despite having high-quality components for pasta production in the domestic market, such as flour, water and other additives, Kazakhstan has a great potential for the development in the industry. The added value of pasta products is many times higher than the added value of wheat flour or exports of raw materials and ingredients. Increased pasta production will boost the country's export potential, create new jobs at enterprises, and will also keep the local manufacturers busy throughout the year. All these factors contribute to better life conditions for the employees, as they want to have a stable job and no worries about the future. I graduated from a university in Taras. I have been working here as a technologist since 2007. What I like about our current manager is that we see certainty and we have a sense of confidence in the company's future. I met my wife here as she was working here at the time. Currently, we are expecting our 5th child. Pasta is a valuable food product that has the following advantages over others: long-term shelf life, 1 year without changing properties, fastness and easiness of cooking, high nutritional value. A meal made from 100 grams of dry products satisfies the daily need in proteins and carbohydrates necessary for the human body by 10%. High absorption rate of nutrients in pasta, such as proteins and carbohydrates. Having undergone the centuries-long path of perfection, pasta continues being a staple in our diet more and more, which makes it one of the most favorite foods consumed nowadays. Also, it is believed that pasta made from wholemeal flour reduces cholesterol levels in the body. Due to active pasta consumption, certain purchasing habits have been formed among those buying this type of products. For example, half of consumers prefer buying packaged pasta, while 25.4% of pasta consumers prefer pasta sold by weight, yet 24.8% of respondents have no particular preferences in this regard. As for consumers' preferences regarding the choice of pasta brands, the majority of consumers, 55%, usually buy pasta made by 2 to 3 specific brands. The number of those buying pasta by one particular brand is 21.1%. Meanwhile, 23.9% of respondents are inconsistent buyers, as they do not have a persistent commitment to certain brands. Let there always be high quality and delicious pasta on your table, which is made in Kazakhstan, of course.